The city awoke in a blaze of ambition, glass towers stretching like monuments to human pride. In the center of this steel and light stood the headquarters of a corporation that dictated markets, livelihoods, and futures. Its marble floors reflected the hurried footsteps of people in suits, each chasing their own ladder to power. She walked through its revolving doors with quiet steps. Her clothes were simple, carefully chosen, pressed neatly though worn from use. Her shoes carried the marks of long journeys, the kind of journeys no one here would understand. But her back was straight, her chin lifted, and her eyes steady, with the quiet strength of someone who had endured storms. The lobby was alive with chatter. Polished voices spoke with perfect cadence, rehearsed charm rolling off their tongues. And then came hers, warm, melodic, different. A question spoken to the receptionist. Just a sentence. Just enough. It was enough for the whispers to start. Enough for heads to tilt, smirks to pass, laughter to ripple like knives wrapped in silk. Her accent, they did not see the nights she had studied until dawn, translating entire books word by word. They did not see the sacrifices her family made so she could sit in this building today. All they saw was the sound of her voice, and to them it meant she did not belong. She did not react. Her silence was not weakness, it was armor. As the elevator opened and she stepped inside, the reflections in its mirrored walls showed her not a woman defeated, but a woman who carried centuries in her shadow. She was not here to prove herself to them. She was here for a truth none of them yet knew. The boardroom was a cathedral of power. Long polished table, screens glowing with numbers, portraits of past leaders staring down from gilded frames. The kind of room designed to intimidate, to remind anyone who entered of the hierarchy carved into its walls. She sat at the far end, her hands folded neatly in her lap. Around her, a panel of executives in crisp suits shuffled papers, tapped. Pens adjusted their glasses with deliberate precision. They looked at her not as a candidate, but as a curiosity. The questions began, sharp, layered, designed to unsettle. She answered calmly, her words thoughtful, her reasoning precise. Yet with every sentence, every syllable colored by her accent. She could see it in their eyes. Dismissal, they exchanged glances, smirked subtly, scribbled notes that were less about her skills and more about the sound of her voice. To them, fluency meant dominance, and anything else meant weakness. They could not hear the brilliance in her ideas, only the melody of a tongue not their own. One leaned back, sighing as if bored. Another tapped impatiently, as though enduring a nuisance. Their questions sharpened, turning into little daggers about her background, her fit, her ability to lead in this environment. The air thickened. She felt the weight of their judgment pressing down, but she did not break. Her voice did not waver. If anything, she became calmer. For deep inside, she carried a secret larger than their arrogance, and soon it would turn their sneers into silence. As the interview dragged on, she drifted into memory, not as escape but as fuel. She remembered the small classroom where she first spoke English aloud, her teacher correcting her gently, while others laughed. She remembered working double shifts, translating her native thoughts into foreign words, never once allowing ridicule to silence her. She remembered her mother's hands, calloused from labor, pressing her shoulders and whispering, "In their own language, your voice is your strength. Never let them take it from you." Those words rang now in her heart like a drumbeat. Her accent was not a flaw, was proof. Proof that she had crossed oceans of struggle. Proof that she could master new worlds while still carrying her old. One, in that boardroom, with portraits of men who once thought themselves untouchable staring down, she realized something. They were not judging her, they were exposing themselves. Their arrogance, their blindness, their obsession with surface. Over substance. And she smiled faintly. Because soon, very soon, the surface would shatter. The door opened, the room shifted. Executives straightened their backs, pens froze midair, eyes darted toward the figure entering. The director, the man who had built empires, whose word reshaped. Futures walked in, His gaze swept the room, firm, commanding. But when his eyes landed on her, everything changed. The authority in his posture softened into reverence. He walked not to the head of the table, but directly to where she sat. And then, to the shock of every watching eye, he bowed. The silence was deafening. Papers stilled, breaths caught. For in that gesture, everything they thought they knew shattered. This, he declared not in words she needed to repeat, but in his actions, is not your applicant. She is your leader, your superior. The one I answer to, the executives who mocked her accent sat frozen, color draining from their faces. Very sound they had ridiculed was the voice of the woman who now held their future in her hands. The boardroom was no longer a place of intimidation. It was a place of reckoning. Those who had smirked avoided her eyes now. Their notes, filled with dismissive scribbles, suddenly felt like chains around their necks. Every tap of their pens, every impatient sigh they had directed at her now echoed in their memory like thunder. The director stepped aside, allowing her to stand. And when she did, the air shifted again. She did not gloat, she did not sneer, she did not need to. Her silence was enough, a silence more powerful than any words they could muster. For in that silence, they were forced to hear their own cruelty, their own arrogance, their own blindness. Her accent, the very thing they mocked, was now the sound of authority. And in that moment, it was not she who was small in their eyes, it was they who were small in hers. She left the boardroom not as an applicant, but as the chairwoman. The marble floors of the lobby echoed differently beneath her steps now. No longer soft, uncertain, or ignored, but commanding, undeniable, unstoppable. The whispers that had once mocked her fell silent as she passed. Some lowered their gaze, others tried to smile nervously. But she did not look at them. Her eyes were fixed forward. Her accent had not changed. Her voice had not softened. And yet, to everyone who heard it now, it sounded different. To them, it was the sound of authority. To her, it was the sound of triumph because, in the end, she did not rise despite her accent. She rose with it. It was not a weakness. It was her crown. And as the sun struck the glass towers once more, the city seemed to bow in reflection of what had already happened inside. A woman once mocked had risen above them all. And the director himself had called her what she had always been, his boss, the chairwoman.